Hi friends. So I've got some tea and I think I'm just going to be drinking as many cups of tea as it takes for me to explain to you how to start a journal. More specifically, I want to talk about how to start what I call a bedside journal. This video is also sponsored by Squarespace, but more about them later. Let's get into it. If you've watched my video on how I journal, where I go over a couple of different methods and approaches that I take for journaling, I talk a bit more about how I actually got started. So with physical journals, yes, I've written diaries as a kid, like sporadically, there would be years in between entries. And then I started bullet journaling, and this is actually the last bullet journal that I wrote, because my approach has kind of changed. I was writing so much in my bullet journal that it didn't really fit the format anymore. Like, I was not bullet journaling anymore. I was just writing. So this was my first journal that was not intended to be a bullet journal. And I started it in 2020. And for some reason, I just love this format of a journal. And so it's actually been nice to see how my practice has evolved and always just keeping the same form of the journals. These are, actually there are different types of brands that have just an A5 soft cover with lines. I don't know, I just love this type of journal. What's interesting when I look at these is that I know from 2020 to 2023 now is that I gradually started writing more and more to where today I feel like I'm basically writing entries every single day. So let's talk about how to start a bedside journal with kind of context and history of how I got here. How does this practice look like? Why do I call this my bedside journal? I would say it evolved for me that I was just finding the time before I sleep to be quite sacred. I guess in the last couple of years, I've tried to create a more peaceful bubble around my bedtime so that I could sleep better, and somehow I have found it so enriching to journal in this time because I try not to have my electronics around. I try to be present, and especially as an overthinker, it can be really difficult to just go to bed and not think, right? And so just having the journal right by my bed allowed me to grab it when I just had anything that I wanted to let go or document from the day. Starting to write in a blank book. Having a blank page in front of you, knowing that there are endless possibilities, knowing that you are going to hopefully fill these pages with your life, which you don't know how it's going to be unfolding exactly yet. That's scary. So here's how I like to jump into cold water, as we say in German, with starting a journal, creating some momentum, and also, just getting pen to paper. Especially if you are not in the practice of journaling, if you still find it a little awkward or overwhelming to express your thoughts in writing. Start with writing a letter to yourself on the first page with your intentions for the journal, or with your intentions for your reflection journey over the next following months or years. This is my intro page for the journal that I started last summer, which I'm going to be reading to you right now. how to break in a notebook of blank pages. Like this. Insert pink cloud. My last journal allowed me to discover a space of solace within my words. Whether it is creating distance to my thoughts, dropping the weight of emotions from my shoulders, or the value of laying out a reflection of my inner world to slowly process when I'm ready to. Maybe you want to stick in like a postcard or some art that inspires you, a quote. Maybe you want to draw something. Maybe you want to go crazy and draw something that, just like some expression. It doesn't have to look good, okay? It's more about just breaking in the first page. And because that can be scary, I just want you to go crazy. In my opinion, that sets the tone for the journal to be a space where you don't have to be perfect. It like sets the tone of everything is welcome here. And this is a safe space for you to express without limitations, and express yourself with the intention for your growth, for self-expression, and not for anyone else to ever judge it or read it or have a part of what is in your journal. It's a self-expression, and I feel like the first page should encourage that for the entire journal. So that's how to get started with the first page. So actually inspired by my bullet journaling, I created artwork to spice up my digital journaling spaces, for example in Notion, and I started selling this as a digital product on my website last year, which I made with Squarespace. I would say Squarespace is the perfect place to go to grow your business online. Create a portfolio, a blog, or an online store for physical or digital products like me. Starting a project like this does not have to be daunting because Squarespace offers all the tools you need. For example, start off with a flexible template and then customize it to fit your style. Build a community with their blogging tools and launch marketing campaigns with an online newsletter to promote your services. So, if you are interested in starting with them today, go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and once you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Yusuf for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. First of all, I want to frame this with my idea of journaling as a practice, that it is a skill. It's the skill of writing that is applied here with the goal of self-reflection. It's not, with the goal of becoming a better writer, but inevitably you are going to become a better writer. And I think it's important and beneficial to remember as a beginner that it may feel uncomfortable and weird to express your thoughts and see what you're actually thinking on paper reflected. Because sometimes we think thoughts, right? And they just pass by. But once you write it down, it's sort of a lot more real, a lot heavier. You can read it over and over again, and it's sort of manifested on paper. And so remember that over time, you're going to feel more comfortable, more confident, and become more efficient at expressing your thoughts. Be more precise with what you want to say or what you want to write, what you want to express on paper. And I find it such a satisfying journey to witness when reading back my journals. And these days when I read it, I truly feel like it's my voice when I read my journaling entries. For the actual content, for the actual texts that we'll be writing, my first tip is to continue your inner monologue. I would say that can give you a starting point. Essentially, without the intention to ever express these things specifically or show specifically your texts to anyone, you could think of it as you're speaking to a person. It's basically that, right? But you're speaking to yourself. So if it helps you to write as if you're addressing someone, keep in mind who you're addressing, and that's yourself in the future. And to be honest, that's quite liberating. because you understand yourself and your brain and your comprehension of writing the best. And so I just found it fun because I can write to myself insiders. I can write about certain aspects about life. I can make certain jokes that perhaps even only I find funny, perhaps that I have never even shared with people, but I can share them with myself. Does that make sense? And you know, something I've noticed is that just continuing one idea I have in my head, expressing one type of feeling and writing it down can inspire so much already, like so much reflection already. You do not have to think about everything that you want to express in your journal before you write it. And that honestly is a part of why it is so enriching, and I feel like it's so empowering, because through the practice you engage actively more with your thoughts. It's not the practice of thinking about the world and transcribing it. It's transcribing maybe one idea and developing that idea, or expressing feelings in the moment when you're writing them. And that is exactly where you can discover feelings and thoughts, develop ideas that you may have otherwise never stumbled upon. And that is so beautiful. And you know, sometimes it's not beautiful. Sometimes it's painful. Sometimes you discover things that are uncomfortable, and that's a part of it. So to summarize this approach, it's about starting with what's going on inside of you, what you're dwelling on, what excites you, what inspires you, extracting that one aspect and expressing it in your journal, and then reflecting on it, continuing to develop that idea, which simply means expressing how you feel about it, expressing how it makes you think of other things, making those connections, all with the goal of understanding yourself better and understanding the world better, ultimately to continue creating a life that you wholly enjoy, a life that you find beautiful with its pain and its beauty. New tea, new topic. Another way I like to write is documenting my day. I think that is still, with this approach, an integral part. But how do we go from this familiar idea of, dear diary, today I did this, dear diary, today I did this again, and dear diary, I basically did the same thing every single week. I do not know why I'm writing this, right? How do we feel compelled to grab our journal by the end of the day or before we sleep and feel like we want to document what went on in our lives? How do we make that meaningful, right? And the way we make it more meaningful is by going from the perspective of your inner world, going from the perspective of how these experiences made you feel. And that is what makes it meaningful. It does not have to be analyzed or developed to be a great expression and to be a valid and encouraged entry in your journal. I think it's beautiful to document your experience in life, but try to include what made it your experience. So if you visited the museum, what made that visit to the museum your visit to the museum? You know, what did it mean to you? What inspired you? How did it make you feel? This is essentially capturing your experience in life. And your experience is so much more than the places you went to or the people you've met. I hope that you learn to express your experience and capture your experience in a way where when you read it again, you feel what you went through. You feel what you felt when you were at the museum. You can remember how you reacted to a certain day in your life, and that is so valuable. It's just as valuable as, you know, developing certain ideas or philosophies you have about life. And so I think both approaches that I've mentioned so far stand on their own as powerful approaches, but complement each other amazingly. Okay, y'all, I really hope that this gave you ideas on how to make journaling feel more approachable. And I truly wish that you find as much value in this practice as I do, that you get started with a journal, and I wish you the best on your journey with it. That being said, I will see you around very soon. Have fun journaling, and until then, bisous!